Walking with grace, I know your face and I trust your hand. Medicine woman, medicine man. Walking with grace, I know your face and I trust your hands. Find your teachers in the voice of the forest. Unplug, you can't ignore this wisdom of the voiceless. Remedies are bountiful and surround us from the garden to the farthest. Prayer made of stardust. Find your healing in the music that calls you, the voice that enthralls you. What do you belong to? Eyes out, there's the setting of the sun. Give thanks to each and every one. The lesson is the medicine woman, medicine man. Walking with grace, I know your face and I trust your hands. Medicine woman, medicine man. Walking with grace, I know your face and I trust your hands. And extending my trap strip back into the messages and action. The art is feeding, stop the disbelieving, cause the garden holds the shards, the medicine is in the seeds. When we hold tight to our right to protect, and we know our might is tenfold in connection. Our elders hold them bright lights, we protect them. The medicine is evident, the wolf, the hawk, the bear clan. We hold tight to our right to protect, and we know our might is tenfold in connection. Our elders hold them bright lights, we protect them. The medicine is evidence, the wolf, the hawk, the medicine woman, medicine man. Walking with grace, I know your face and I trust your hands. Medicine woman, medicine man. Walking with grace, I know your face and I trust your hands.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Looks like we have Shakidra in now. Whoop, whoop. Returning good medicine visitor. I think we'll get started here. I'd like to introduce our beautiful facilitators again, Kathryn Evans and Kristin Johnstad. Kathryn, let's get started with you.
Okay.
And talk a little bit about movement as medicine.
Oh my goodness. Oh, what can I say about this? I mean, I'm a dancer. So I love using my body to express myself. And that has evolved a lot, I think, over the years, because I can say I'll work backwards. Like now I'm at a place where I have wisdom about my body. I have wisdom about what my body can do and also about its limitations. But I also that I have like an unconstrained, or I'll say a less constrained perspective about how my body can move and what it should be doing when it's moving. And I've arrived at this place after years of sort of deconstructing what my body can do. Because in my early life, I was in classical ballet. And that world is very constraining. Like literally, like the leotards are tight, the tights are tight, the point shoes like are tight, like everything is just like bound. And also psychologically, um, there are constraints on like what is considered like a ballet body. And that's not the body that I have. And um and then being a Black woman too, a Black girl in this body and entering mostly white spaces in ballet schools, just really like feeling the difference and being very self-conscious about the difference, um and trying to make my body look like the other bodies as it moved. And that has been a um very long and challenging process of deconstruction that I think I'm probably still in the middle of and might be for the rest of my life. But I I find so much freedom in movement now that I do feel um, that I can claim it for myself in a way that I have not been able to in the past. And so like when I think about movement as medicine, that's really what comes to mind for me is um, the recognition that the way my body moves is beautiful and unique and also has the power to like liberate me from old stories about who I am in the world. So that's where I'll start. I could say a lot more, I'm sure.
Kristin, would you like to share a little bit about what movement means to you in medicine? Kristin is muted.
Oh, am I unmuted now?
You are, yeah.
Well, there's so many things I was thinking about as Kathryn was sharing. In some ways, we have similar parts of our journey. So I do think that, how I was also, I was an active kid, so I like to be outside, and I would think of, actually, Rita, I think about you and roller skating, but like I like to be like on my bike out in the world. So there was a lot of, and we moved a lot. So there was always also trying to figure out like, what's acceptable here, what's not acceptable. But I entered that world of training in terms of formal movement in ballet as well. And I guess part of and I knew there was something that I enjoyed about it, but it was super externally oriented. Like Kathryn said, the thing about the ballet body, I actually, at one point, it wasn't diagnosed, but I had an eating disorder. And I remember going home actually, and my dad saw me like at I think I was like 83 pounds or something. He's like, "Oh, you look fabulous." And it was like one of those where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm sick. I'm sick. I need to get some help. So I think this kind of like, so some of our journeys are the same. I also I expanded out, but I was always, in terms of not just ballet, but other dance forms, but I was always doing it either for someone else or somebody else was guiding it, like a teacher in a yoga, like I have a yoga practice now. And even though they say, use the time as you like often, I'm following the instruction that's being given. And so I'm really playing a lot more now, really with finding communities and myself knowing like how can my body lead the way. And so in some ways movement might be super subtle because it might be knowing how can I, well, like when I watched this and that music came on, like people just started rocking, things that we don't think about that actually like we do when we pick up a baby that's a little dysregulated to comfort the baby, we just start rocking. So I'm really interested in paying attention to and reclaiming what are the ways that we move throughout our day that bring us comfort, that bring us ease personally, and that help us do that in our neighborhoods. And so that's Mine is a little bit more towards, I think, healing things that I know are in me that I want to free. But there's nothing like a good dance party, which
Nothing like a good dance party. I just want to like honor and acknowledge Kristin for sharing all of that. I mean, I think what's striking me, because there's actually a lot more similarities than I realized, Kristin, about our stories. And um, the the eating stuff, and just like the body image and the body dysmorphia, and the way that society and even people in our families celebrate us for um, having bodies that look a certain way but are actually sick.
yeah,
And it's just very deeply entrenched.
yeah,
And it's interesting to me that how much that shows up like at the intersection of dance and movement, and really makes me want to like, yeah, reclaim the way that we move.
yeah.
um in like in an even more profound way. So just wanted to provide another connection point to you, because we have a lot in common in that regard.
Awesome. And we'll keep discovering.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna mention that if anyone wants to drop in the chat their relationship with movement, now is a great time. I can share a little bit about my experience. I am a roller skater, as Kathryn and Kristin have mentioned, and I really use it as a tool for freedom, because it's like I've used it to as transportation, and also as, pleasure with dance skating, and also as competition with like speed skating. But for me, it's like a tool that I use to just kind of take off the barriers that I feel I have in a daily life, and just sort of, without, I don't know, better lack of a term, skate away from all my issues and problems going on. But just how that has inspired me throughout the years. I just continue to love that form of exercise. And I think that that's something too, like I did competitive sports growing up all throughout my life, and it was always seen as, the competition and winning and sort of getting to that final trophy. And then you realize there is no final trophy, and that the trophy in and of itself is kind of the journey of the movement all along. And so that's something I've been trying to reinforce in my life. So yeah, if anyone else has any other connections they'd like to share in the chat, Shakidra, we'll give some time for people to read what she submitted. Sounds like people have very similar upbringings in connection with dance and our bodies.
I really appreciate you, Rita, like bringing in another expression of movement that's not dance with roller skating. I mean, I know that dancing on skates is something that you do, and that's like so fun and cool. But there are a lot of ways that we can express through movement that aren't necessarily dance, or dance as we've been told that it is, like that aren't necessarily like rhythmic or coordinated, but still have like such a powerful effect on our bodies and our ability to express ourselves. So I appreciate that. I'm very curious, like other ways that you all, Kristin, Rita, anyone else that's in this conversation, other ways that you move. Like, what are the different movements that you practice? I'll share one. I started doing this program called Eccentrics, and it's essentially like it's an exercise program, but it's a way of like stretching and strengthening muscles rather than contracting to strengthen muscles. And when I started doing it in 2020 as like a way to just have exercise. And what I realized as I was doing it, because of all the stretchiness, right? Like I'd stretch over and it's almost like I could feel the space in between my ribs, like the muscles and the sinews and like that uh that whole web of skeletal muscular intricacy that's in my body. I was able to feel it in a new way, or in a way that I hadn't in a really long time. And um that that just felt really good. Like it physically felt really good to give myself that space in my body. Also felt like I was discovering something new. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that I had muscles there. I didn't know that like these tendons move this way, you know? So that is one that I've really appreciated. I really like any stretching movement to provide space, because I think subconsciously and by default, I spend a lot of time clenched. You know, that's another part of my deconstruction process is like releasing and sort of letting go and surrendering in my body. It's not something I was taught to do, so I'm having to learn it. And the stretching is a really important part of that for me. So I don't know if y'all have any other thoughts on different types of movement.
Well, and yes, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, like I love to bike. We gave up our cars and we bike in the city. I live in the city of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and if we're in the metro area, we try to take the electric bike just so we can pick up stuff that we need as we go when we're outside. I think for me, a huge piece of it, and I never feel bad after I get off my bike. I think it is about moving the body, but it's really being in nature. And so there's, you know, like where I am also is important with how my body feels. And so I think, yeah, and I'm hoping that, I'm hoping if it's not raining, that we can do a little bit of stuff outside, because I think just being able to feel the wind, or, you know, to be outside is beautiful. And then I have a yoga practice too, and I think that idea of like mind and body connection is really important. I don't know, I was thinking when you were talking about constriction, like, you know, as I'm trying to be present for things that aren't comfortable in my life, whether those are things happening in my neighborhood, in my family, like how my body cannot brace against, so that I can like hear, or that, what, you know, how do I build my capacity to hold hard stuff. And then I was thinking too, and I'm such in the baby place of learning this. There's so much great stuff online, and probably in the wisdom of our community, but you know, the fascia, the stuff that's like the tissue around the muscle, is what holds any traumas. So any emotional traumas, if you can release it, Kathryn, then that's super. Or if you can, you know, have somebody help you move with it, but it's there. Like that's a lot of the work that's been, yeah, it's just gotten a lot more publicity. But for me, it's thinking about how do I, you know, sometimes I have to see a craniosacral person or a chiropractor or something, because they'll find stuff, acupuncturists, they'll find stuff that I can't, to get it moving. So it's not the same as externally moving, but like for me, if the body, we want the same kind of flow in the body as we want in the world. So how do we have things that are less blocked, less toxic, less constrained or bracing? Or how do I notice when I'm doing that, and then make a choice about it? That's, you know, good now, or wow, I'm starting to lock in my jaw. I'm starting to, you know, and I need to end the conversation, or pause in the conversation, because I'm not going to really, my body is giving me signals that like this is not good, or anyway. So that's, it feels subtle, but I think, you know, it's all going back to like, how do we find practices that help us know the subtle, so that when we move big, we can move with freedom and ease.
I think, oh, go ahead, Kathryn.
I was just gonna just draw everyone's attention to the chat. Rita, Shakidra are contributing, and also Shakidra is relating to what Kristin is saying. So just wanted to share that.
I think too, Kristin, you're kind of hinting at our next question that I want to pose to everyone. When you think about, I think a lot about my nervous system and how movement helps regulate that or release some of the tensions and blocks that I'm feeling in my life. And also the past parts of my life. So the question I was going to ask is, what movements connect us to our ancestors? I think this is something that I haven't even really put much thought to, but I could totally see being represented in what I enjoy in my movement practices and maybe why I enjoy them. So I'll throw it over to you, Kathryn. Have you thought about this question a little bit?
I really love this question. I especially love it today because it is the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, and I am honoring my ancestors today and every day, but especially on this day, including my beloved mother who passed away earlier this year. I have so many memories of dancing with my mom. In fact, it's like the thing that I miss probably the most about her is being able to dance with her. She and I, every time I would go home to Memphis, we would put on an old record, Donny Hathaway, old school singer from like the 70s, 80s. And we'd put on actual vinyl on the record player and play this song called In the Ghetto. And I should add that to the playlist actually. And just dance. And then, you know, eventually my grandmother also, who's still living, she danced with us. And even when she couldn't dance anymore because of her mobility, like she would still sway to the music from her chair. And then, you know, our daughter eventually joined in. So we'd have these like multi-generational dance parties, but always like centered on home and centered around each other. And I miss dancing with her. I really do. She also taught me to love the body that I have, and was so proud of me as a dancer, like a performer, and advocated for me in these environments where I was the only Black kid, and just made sure that I got what I needed out of those experiences. So I feel a lot of connection to her when I dance. And the specific movements, I think, that connect me to her and to my ancestors tend to be ones that have like a lot of hip, like lower body movement, like twerking is like an ancestral dance in my mind. And just like the very like rooted nature of like bearing down in the ground with your feet and then letting your hips go is something that is almost like innate to me. And you know, I think a lot of people kind of well, it can be a sexualized movement, and that's wonderful, but like it's not exclusively a sexualized movement. And like I love that is something that I know is in my lineage, and that those dances have been used for centuries in African countries and tribal communities to express like all kinds of things and communicate all kinds of things about daily life, about grief, about life and joy and hope and all of these concepts. So definitely feel a deep ancestral connection to twerking. um and anything that's like sort of in my hips. So those are the movements that I think are most resonant for me when I think about my ancestors.
Well, I went a totally different direction when I was thinking about the question, and it's really like everyday movements, ordinary things. So I think about my ancestors when I wash the dishes with intention, and instead of just moving things into the dishwasher, like if I load the sink with warm water and put the soap in and do the dishes and watch them dry on the towel, or I think that's how my ancestors did their dishes. And when I was little, I mean, all growing up, like it was always my sister and I would, one would wash, one would dry, that kind of thing. So wash or hanging up clothes in the spring is like stunning. My grandparents did it all year round, obviously, and so sometimes they tried to keep most of the stuff inside, but I remember having to go out and trying to like get the sheets that were already frozen solid out on the line and bringing them in, and just that whole. So it's those kind of, gardening is such a blessing down in Kansas City. So again, I'm hoping we'll see what the weather does, but it would be nice to be out for sure a little bit in the yard of a forest house, but even getting up to that garden, as soon as I get on the ground or do anything like that, with plants, then I channel my ancestors. But the one thing so that's what came to mind, and the one thing that I was thinking that I've done recently, and I've used it over time, that's movement based and a little different than Kathryn's party with her mom and grandma and little ones. But if I'm feeling like my relationship with my sweetheart, my spouse, is like a lot of to-dos, then I'll ask to prepare dinner together instead of, usually it'll be one or the other. And we always have a slow dance. And what's interesting to note, like during at some point when we're preparing, and what's interesting is that usually it's like, if I'll say like, okay, will you dance with me, or will you choose a song to dance, or I guess sometimes they've been fast, but usually they're slow, and like they start good and beautiful, and then oftentimes it's like, oh, this is like uncomfortable, so just noticing like 3 minutes dancing slowly in the kitchen is like a really beautiful thing. And it's a reminder either that I'm paced too fast, or I'm like, we got to get stuff done, and like I can take 3 minutes. So it just helps me noticing, like, yeah, how do I do that in my kitchen? Asking for what you need, that's a big one too. That's a big one.
I love those examples. That was just touching, and there are certain quotes that popped out in my head. I think I wrote multi-generational dance party. I love that as a concept. Shakidra also mentioned, I imagine walking with a crown on my head, honoring my paternal grandmother. She embodied grace, and connecting with her through my walk is the path to accessing grace. That's medicine right there. Similarly, I have been fixing, well, it's about my grandfather. He was a farmer. He was like raised on a farm with lots of other farmers, and of course they fixed everything that they owned. And recently I've been fixing my car. I put a new engine in it, which I never thought I'd be able to do, with the help of my partner. And I just think about all the movements that it takes to piece something back together. And like Kristin said, sometimes you have to just pause and do these little things surrounding the daily life that kind of is the chaos around. And I've been feeling that fixing my car has almost been like a grounding exercise. I'm just taking piece by piece and putting it all together, which has been really healing for me. So thank you everybody for sharing.
I have one more that I
Okay.
just thought about. So it also relates to my mom that and it relates to what Kristin said earlier about like the way we instinctively rock babies and, you know, the things we do. So my mom had a very specific pattern of when I was younger of like shushing me to sleep. So it would be like, I'm going to pretend this is my back and this is her hand. So she would pat me a few times, like kind of hard, but like not to hurt, not in a way that hurt, but just in a firm, assured way. And then she would rub like this. So it was this interchange of like this firm pat and then this like rubbing in a circle. And I noticed that I do that with my daughter. It's the same pattern. Pat, like a firm pat and then a rub. And that one I just like I know that that's like in my body, like stored as a memory, as the way that she would comfort me, and I get to pass it on to my daughter, which is special.
I'm gonna let that rest a little bit. That was such a beautiful image. We've sort of answered this question already, but what does movement play in your life? What role does it play? So I think maybe taking this question a little bit further, talking about our daily lives. Is there a daily movement practice that you all are involved in that you try to do every day, whether that's a walk or washing dishes? Is there something else that we haven't mentioned that's a little bit more monotonous or kind of part of our daily routine that is healing for you all? I know for me, if I am so busy that I can't go to like an organized exercise class, I really enjoy going for a walk, that sort of thing. Even dancing around in my room. I actually just did that earlier today. I'm transparency, I'm moving this weekend, and so I've been like in my head a lot. And my roommate and cousin, she's my roommate and cousin, her and I have kind of just been are at odds with some things, and I was just frustrated. I was like feeling almost anger. And so I put on my headphones and I was like dancing around my room, like hacking and like like fist punching the air to like release some of that. And it really helped. So I'm wondering if anyone else has those experiences.
Well, I could start this time if you want, Kathryn. Yeah, I mean, I have a daily meditation practice, and so um, in the tradition, well, most Buddhist traditions, you can meditate sitting or lying down or standing or walking. So it sort of depends on like how how activated I am. Like if I end up sitting and like the whole time I'm just like bracing, then I do walking meditation. Um, or if I've been on a chair, then I do like sitting a lot, then I'll do lying meditation. So I kind of like sense what does my body need based on, but I try to, I mean, I do some that kind of a meditation practice every day as a way to clear and like build my concentration, that I can help my mind understand like it's one part of me, it's not the boss of everything, even though it wants to like direct everything. I do think, for in this culture that we're in, the larger, whatever, what's the word? We're just so focused on the brain, the cognitive, the body is the thing that carries your head around. But so I try to like help the mind know, like, I notice that you're whatever, but like that's not useful, and let's just calm down, calm down, calm down. And then, yeah, sometimes So, and then the other thing I do, which I'm happy to share on Sunday, or here I could share, but there's a particular practice that's called total relaxation. You can do, it's like a body scan, but you can, I do it every day after lunch. And if I don't have a lot of time, it'll be short, like 15 minutes. If I have a longer time, I'll do 45 minutes. And like it gets to me to that kind of like rest state where it's not sleeping, but it's this like total rest state that when I get up, I just feel like, oh my gosh, this is fabulous. And I wouldn't have like again, this is what I'm still learning about my own nervous system and conditioning. Like I wouldn't have thought, oh, I need to do this. I'm feeling really tired, but it's like a reset, and I do it every day, every day. Sometimes Sundays are even a little longer. So
That I want that. That sounds amazing.
yeah, actually, I will say there was a friend of mine, and we'll learn or I'll share the practice. It's called "Don't You Feel It Too," and he offered. I'm not going to talk about that, but he just offered public resting before a series of talks at a college, and he created a beautiful space with the atrium and had some very ethereal music, and everybody was like just in this total, and he called it public resting and embodied listening, so that as people would go into this series, they would be listening in different ways than if they just raced across the campus. And yeah, he said it was, I just imagine public resting, what a concept.
I a like pattern that I'm noticing in both the practice that you shared, the total relaxation, and then the public resting is like rest, intentional rest as like in connection to movement, or like as a partner to movement. So like you having your total relaxation and then having this like boost of energy to go about your day, or like the public resting before you're intentionally listening. I'm just noticing that and kind of thinking about what that means for me, like what that looks like for me to blend rest and movement. And it's like the principles of physics, is that right? Like a like whatever's moving will continue to move, and whatever's resting will continue to rest. And so like what is the blend of those ideas that creates balance and purpose? Just a thought. I was thinking about this question, like the way that Rita asked it was kind of intriguing, like what are those things you do every day? And the first thing that I thought of was I look out my window or look out the front door and see what's going on my block. I do that every day. And I think many of you, or both of you, know how important my neighborhood and community is to me. And the block that I have, I call it the beloved block. It's very special community that we've cultivated together over the years. And there's usually something happening, not always, but I don't know. I just have this daily habit of peeking out and being like, what's going on the block? Or like opening the door and stepping out on the porch and looking around. And more often than not, there is something going on. There's somebody that I can wave to, or there's like a kid left a scooter out in the middle of the street that I need to go pick up, something, there's some kind of response usually, but sometimes it's just like, I'm just checking in on my home, and making sure that all is well in the village. And so yeah, I would say that that's probably my daily movement. That's the one that's the most consistent. When I'm not committing to anything else, I'm always committing to this place that I live.
I love that. I think returning to the checking in on your village is something that is like just a very simple thing you can do that maybe is a lost art, I would say. I was gonna say sometimes I like watching the movement of my cat. just see what they're up to and just how they're reacting to the environment. And that is sort of a fun way to get me out of my body and to just kind of see a perspective from a different living creature. Which my favorite thing is how much they rest. And I think that it has helped me from time to time when I'm like, because I mentioned in the chat, like sometimes I feel guilty for taking naps or for like being lazy or for whatever. And I look at the cats and I'm like, there's like an objectively like resting creature that there's no good or bad to what they're doing because they're just existing. And that's something that's brought me a lot of peace. So
Cat inspiration.
yeah, pet inspiration.
I want to see you move like a cat.
I love how they can arch their backs. I'm like, I
I
want to do that. Like they stretch and then like their backs are just like
I know. And the way they like cuddle and get and like just pack together like Tetris blocks, like I don't know, they have a way about them.
they
And
are inspiring.
use
We have
that
a few cat lovers on this call. I know Rita Rita obviously, but Shakidra and Lindsay and I all love cats. We recently visited a cat cafe, and one of the cats was so in love with Shakidra that it jumped up on her head and just kind of stayed there.
love that.
connected to her beautiful crown.
Yes.
Oh yeah, this is a good point. Shakidra said, needing to expand on my awareness and connection to movement throughout the day. It isn't until I feel tension that I realize. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Imagery of cats moving. What were we gonna say, Kristin?
no, I was gonna say that's that. I often notice, like I said, I wouldn't think I'd need to do a little 15-minute reset, but when I do a reset, there's something that I was holding that I don't realize it. And now, again, this wasn't the question related to ancestors, but like now I'm seeing like how my body is being conditioned by the kind of movement or the kind of, if I'm sitting at a desk or I've been told to whatever, like, just how over time the shoulders will drop or move forward, or like where am I holding things? If I look at my mom, then I start to see these other places of conditioning based on, yeah, beliefs about certain things or safety or yeah, so I think there's lots there to notice. Or you're like, I know for me, even just standing, like now I'm standing, but I'm standing in the center. My tendency is to always be a little bit leaned forward on my feet, the weight's more forward, because it's like on the move, right? We're on the move, like what's next, versus like, okay, I'm in the center. So
Yeah, when
As
you
you're
said
saying,
that,
it started moving.
I know. I'm like, I'm hunched forward.
I definitely am just
What happens if I lean back? Like how does it does feel different, and it's an important difference to notice.
well, or knowing why is it? Like, are we protecting our heart and
Mm,
chest? Have we had to do that for, like, our body? I don't think is gonna mess with us unless like we have a job where it's like, physically we have to be doing certain things, but our body is doing exactly, you said well, you brought it up earlier about, regulating, Rita, that language of regulating, but our body's trying to protect us always and keep us safe. But
yeah.
it's super hard when like the larger message in most communities is, you better be afraid, you better protect, like then you walk out already bracing.
Mhm.
And there's super important reasons why people have had to like brace, so but that's all in us and it's been passed down from, mother to daughter or from, so I think that's also in our systems, and trying to see how trying to understand it to work with it. So
Yeah. We one more that sparked a thought in my head, which is that I do improv pretty much like every other weekend I perform, and they've taught us, or they just tell us, you know, it's important, like when you're on the back line before you go out and do a scene, the difference between like having your arms like this versus having your hands together clasped like kind of by your side. It's like there's a you're communicating through your body language of whether or not you even want to open yourself up to a scene or open yourself up to the audience. So I've always kind of been thinking more consciously about the way I am presenting and maybe why I'm doing that or what I need to do to kind of open myself back up,
Mhm.
so to
Yeah,
speak.
and it's good to me again, like it's like if you can have that awareness, that's great. But I actually like I ask my family to help me with things. Like I'll say,
Yeah.
if you notice that my jaw is this, or you'll notice that my brow, like because I don't even notice it. Like
Mhm.
if you've been conditioned, you have a habit, energy in your body. Like for me, I think asking, that's again how we can ask for support from each other. Like
Mhm.
don't want to be this way, but if, I start to clench my jaw and look like I'm getting worried and freaked out, it's probably because what you're saying me to me is doing that, and I need to like be aware of like what I'm communicating. So
Mm. I think we have one more question before we wrap it up. Um, Although I'm really enjoying this conversation, it's flown by. But the last question we had was, when or how did you realize movement could support your healing journey?
Um, I think I have been reclaiming movement for healing for, I think it's been probably a lot in the past, like 7 years, 7 to 8 years since my daughter was born. Um, I, I mean, I just really had to renegotiate my relationship with movement, dance, and my body after I had my daughter. And I wanted to, I remember thinking like, I'm a dancer. Like, I am not a professional ballerina as I thought when, in the past, and like when I was a child, I thought I might be. And like, I don't dance, I don't perform like every day, and I don't take dance classes, but I'm a dancer. Like, and I just felt that I started to feel that part of my identity so strongly that I was like, I'm a dancer. I dance, I'm a dancer. Like I write, I'm a writer, like these these I just like started to claim these parts of myself. And then it gave me permission to let myself explore different ways of dancing, different ways of moving. So um and really helped me get back in touch with my body after Clara was born, after my daughter was born, because yeah, birthing and postpartum and all of that can be a very I mean, it's a very sensory experience, but it can also be very dissociative because it's so strange. um so I'd say, yeah, in the past 8 years or so. And I am really, again, giving myself permission to explore different forms. So I'm currently experimenting with a partner dance called West Coast Swing. That's very fun. And it's a lot of, there's some technique to it, but it's a lot of improv, which is a great balance for me because I like both the rules of dance, but I also like the freedom to move how I want. And I I think I probably like go to an event or a class or something that is movement dance related at least once a week now. And that feels really good. So it's been a gradual realization over these past few years, but I definitely see it as being critical to my healing journey.
When did I realize? Well, I think it's actually interesting. Another synchronicity really probably is this idea of when I had a child. You know, there's a phrase, what you transmit, what you don't transform. And I think I realized, you know, whether it was things I was using with my words or, you know, the action, like Kathryn said, with the, you know, pat, 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 rub, like what are the things that I am going to pass on? And how do I do that? You know, it's just this really like thinking about trying to be conscious. What do I want to pass on? And I knew my mind was really a challenge. So that's when I started kind of meditation practice. And I did start in a particular tradition that was very rigid and strict. And that didn't help. That was like, oh, there's a right way or the wrong way. So I found my way into a tradition that has more spaciousness. I also feel like, you know, there are ways that, for me, maybe because of that dance thing and being with people, there are things like when I'm with others, that's where I feel really powerful. And so again, like even thinking about the biking, you know, there's was a strong movement for a while called critical mass, where bikes would just take over the street and just slow things down, or claim the street, because that was like, that's where it needs to be, instead of always being pushed to the edge where you know, where we need to be seen. And now they have a thing called Joyful Ride, actually, which we do, where they've got a DJ on the back of a trailer, and they pull this music thing, and we bike as, you know, anywhere from 30 to 40 to they're in, sometimes when the weather's beautiful, hundreds of people just fill the street and they're moving and they're lit up. And so that, I love that, to come down to Kansas City or do that with you on Kansas City at some point. And I'm still, I think trying forms where I have to listen to how does my body want to move in relation to something. So one of the things that we've been doing in preparation for the election, and we'll go through election night and beyond, is this practice called Don't You Feel It Too? We'll do it on Sunday. But it's a way for people to be in public, moving with their own music, but to also try to either be a presence or interrupt something. Like I have done it at Planned Parenthood protests. And we just, as movers, get in the middle where we can between two tensions and move. And it's really interesting to see how it impacts others around. You know, some people are excited and want to join, some people are freaked out. But I think this trying to take it out into the world is really, that is helpful for me. And it has been on these polling things, people seeing like, it doesn't have to be these binary, like we can find joy in these hard times, we can find joy. So yeah, so when did I realize? A long time ago, and I'm slowly trusting that I don't have to run around and find a new class, a new my body knows. But for me, I think for some people, everybody has to find what's the edge for them. But for me, I put it earlier in that chat, it was about stopping running around, trying to know how to calm myself, like whether that's something meditation, whether that's doing the dishes, but can I calm myself? Can I rest? Then I can start focusing on healing. And what do I want to heal? And at least the teachers that I have been with over time have also said, like, you shouldn't heal the hard stuff until you've got enough reserves to be able to put yourself in a good place too. So yeah, so that feels good, because that's not the overarching message that my ancestors gave me. It was sort of like, work hard, don't play. And so like, just get it done, be honorable, you know, be honest. So, you know, it's trying to trying to shift some of that. I think that was a little bit of a ramble, but
Well, it's beautiful. And Shakidra is like affirming and kind of co-signing what you're saying in the chat. She says that she had the awareness for about has had the awareness for about 20 years. and first working through trauma through talk and writing so that she could begin owning her confidence. And now movement is her new focus. So it's like what you were saying about, you know, like making sure you like have some things in reserve so that you can address the hard things
Yeah.
as they come.
And I think, I guess this is okay if it's recorded, because like I'm no expert. I'm not a whatever. I'm just a person. But I do think, depending on when and how your trauma happened, like I think for me, like a lot of like why movement is that it was early. It was before I could talk about it. So words don't work,
Mm,
because all I know is that something feels like my gut is super attuned.
mhm, mhm,
And and then I think that on top of moving so many places made me really good at watching, which made me really good at having the career I've had, but like knowing like what is happening inside me, especially if words don't, it's like it's good, but it's kind of like a wacky mess, a good mess. And I'm so glad I'm with you in it, and so Shakidra and Lindsay and all of our, I mean, all of our people around us. So people are trying to do the best they can, but we're in like dysregulated times, and that's where I think we see like, meeting people that we know or even don't know, and people just go off. It's because there's so much fear and
Yeah.
scaredness that's being fed. So how do we be aware, but how do we notice how that's jacking our systems out of whack? Oh my goodness. Yay!
So I think we'll wrap up with our plug for the in-person workshop,
Yep.
which is this Sunday, November 3rd, around the same times, right, Kathryn? 1:30 to
Yeah.
5.
Mhm.
Feel free to scan the QR code, share with a friend. Lord knows we need this before next week. Tying in with Kristin, I think the uncertainty of everything has really affected my just system. So I think moving and finding some grounding and peace is really gonna be helpful. But it was a real pleasure to speak with you all, and I'll part.
I am hoping, even though like there's snow up here where I am, so I don't think I would go outside in the snow, but there will be a little follow-up. If you end up coming, let us know, because there's a few things that we'd like you to bring, or I'd like you to bring. I'd like you to bring some layers, so if we can get a little bit outside, and to bring some music and a way to listen to it. So there's a little follow-up if you pass it along and register, or get people to register.
And I'm sharing the playlist again. I did add your song, Kathryn, to that.
Thank you, Rita.
So please add songs. I know some people are having some issues adding, so I will send a follow-up email with a video on how you can add songs so that you can juice up the playlist with some of your favorite.
Awesome.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye.